In the 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler's room, the bundle on the bench is yours, pale from retting, cold from the key, and waiting for your hands. Settle in now, and let the pace become as slow as the work itself. We begin where the city is still half asleep, near the damp breath of the Maas, with warehouse walls dark from night air and windows showing only a faint grey shine. In this part of Rotterdam, the Flax Hackler is not a figure in a painting, but you, standing beside a comb of iron teeth, listening to the first cartwheels outside. The room smells of straw, river damp, old wood, and the faint sourness left from retted flax. Nothing here needs rushing. Your coat is still buttoned when you step inside, because the morning has not warmed the brick yet, and the floor holds the chill like stone. Along the wall, bundles of scutched flax lean in tied sheaves, each one combed by weather before it ever reaches your bench. We can notice them quietly together, these long dull gold fibers from farms beyond the city, from Zeeland, from Flanders, from low fields where water sits in ditches. They've already been pulled, dried, retted, broken and scutched, and now they wait for the slower finishing of your trade. The hackle itself looks simple at first, only a bed of upright steel pins fixed into wood, but your hands know to treat it with respect. The teeth catch the light in thin lines, sharp enough to divide the fibers, close enough to take away shive, tow, dust and tangled weakness. You lift one end of the flax and feel its weight settle across your fingers. It's lighter than rope, heavier than hair, and dry enough to whisper when moved. Outside, the port is beginning its day, but inside your work starts with one drawn breath. You take the first streak of flax by its butt end, where the old root once held firm in wet soil, and you spread it gently across your palm. The fibers are uneven, because no field grows in straight lines for your convenience, and no harvest comes into Rotterdam already obedient. Some strands are long and silky, some are stubborn, and some break away like dry grass. You draw the bundle down over the coarse hackle, not hard, not with force, but with a steady pull that lets the iron teeth do their patient work. There is a sound to it that belongs to this room. It's not the crash of a mill or the shout of a dockside gang, but a dry sighing scrape, like a broom passing slowly over stone. Each pull leaves a little more order behind it, and each return of your hand gathers the flax again for another pass. We can feel the rhythm enter your shoulders, down through the wrists, into the fingers that hold just enough and never too much. The old workers knew this measure without naming it. In 1910s Rotterdam, a flax hackler stands between field and thread, though few people walking past the warehouses would think of such a place. They might see bales, carts, barrels, coal dust, and river mist, but not the quiet combing that makes rough fiber ready for finer work. You know the missing step because you live inside it. The flax must be drawn again and again through teeth of different fineness, each pass taking away coarse tow, splinters of woody stem, and the little knots that would trouble a spinner later. Your apron gathers the dust before your clothes do. It settles as a pale film on the dark cloth, and when you bend near the bench, you can smell the old plant life inside it. There is field in the smell, and ditch water, and warm barn loft, and the faint stale sweetness of fibre stored through weather. The window is small enough that morning enters slowly. We don't need more light than that, only enough to see the long fibres shine when they turn. The first stage is the roughest, so your hands begin there, on the hackle, with wider teeth set firmly into the block. You grip the flax near one end, swing it lightly, and lay it over the points, so the first combing opens the bundle. A careless pull would tear good line away, but your pace is mild and constant. You draw down, lift, shake loose the waist, and lay the flax again. The room accepts this rhythm as if it has heard it for many years. The toe catches in the teeth, short and tangled and dull. You pause to clear it with a small wooden tool, teasing the clumps away from the iron so the pins are ready again. That toe is not nothing, and in a practical city like Rotterdam, almost nothing is simply thrown aside. It may become coarse yarn, stuffing, rough cloth or packing, depending on its length and cleanliness. Your hands sought value from disorder, quietly, without ceremony. Outside, a horse snorts in the lane, and the harness rings once against a shaft. You hear a man's voice from somewhere near the loading doors, softened by brick and fog, and then the sound fades behind the scrape of fiber over metal. The city is waking by trade and tide. Steam cranes, barges, dock sheds, and counting rooms all have their own noise, but your room has the gentler authority of repetition. Here progress is measured by softness, and as the morning light settles deeper into the workshop, the rough first combing gives way to the calmer task of choosing what each bundle can become. You hold the flax up toward the window, and the strands show their differences. The longest fibers hang in one smooth fall, pale gold where the light finds them, grey where shadow rests in the inner folds. Shorter pieces cling near the top, and dusty fragments still hide close to the grip. We can see why the 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler needed more than strong wrists. You needed an eye for length, a sense for quality, and the habit of noticing small things before they cause trouble. A good strick is not judged in a hurry. You turn it, loosen it, spread it slightly with your thumb, and watch how the fibers separate after the first pass. Fine flax hangs with a cool, almost damp smoothness, even when it's dry. Poorer fiber feels harsher and more restless. It resists your fingers, catches against itself, and leaves more toe in the teeth. You don't scold it. You simply give it the work it needs. On the bench beside you, there may be several grades waiting in separate little heaps. The best line flax lies straight and bright, meant for finer spinning where a smooth thread matters. The middling material has its own future, useful and honest, perhaps for twine, rougher fabric, or blends where perfection is not required. The toe waits in a looser pile, softer to the eye but full of broken ends. The old trade makes room for all of it. You draw another portion through the hackle and feel the tug change. At first the flax resists like tangled hair after wind. Then it begins to slide more easily as the teeth align the fibers. That change is one of the small rewards of the job. It happens in the hand before it happens in the eye. The bundle grows smoother, and your grip grows less tense, and the whole motion becomes quieter. There is dust in the air now, visible only where the window gives it light. It turns slowly, lifted by your movement, then falls over the bench and floor in a fine, pale veil. You might keep a cloth at your neck, or step back now and then to clear your throat, because flax dust is part of the room's weather. Still, the day moves gently. You shift your feet, ease your shoulders, and return to the comb. The hackler's bench is worn smooth along the edge where hands have rested for years. Its corners are darkened by oil, skin, fiber, and time, and its legs stand unevenly on the old floorboards. When your palm touches that polished place, you feel the workers before you without needing their names. They stood in Rotterdam rooms like this one, close to the port, close to the damp, turning field stems into line fit for the spindle. By now your hands know the morning's first pattern. Grip, lay, draw, lift, shake, clear, and sort. The order is simple enough to forget and precise enough to require you. We move with it quietly, letting the pattern hold the mind without asking too much from it. Some jobs press the worker forward. This one invites you down into steadiness. The finest fibers are saved from rough handling, because their value lies in their length. Long flax, once properly hackled, can be spun into linen thread with a strength that surprises anyone who only sees its softness. Linen has served sails, sheets, shirts, tablecloths, ledgers, canvas and bags, because flax gives strength without bulk. You don't need to name all those uses as you work. Still, they are present in the room, folded into every smooth strand. In the 1910s, machines already do much of the heavy processing in many places, and factories have their own restless pace. Yet the old hand skills remain in corners, finishing rooms, smaller workshops, and trades where touch still matters. A machine can comb, and often does, but your fingers can feel when a bundle is ready. They can sense a stubborn knot, a hidden shive, a change in dampness, and a break waiting to happen. That is why your bench still has a place. The iron teeth darken toward their base, where years of fiber and handling have left a dull polish. Some are bent slightly, though not enough to spoil the work. You notice such things because the tool is not separate from your body after a while. The hackle is the still hand, and yours is the moving one. Between them, the flax is slowly persuaded into order. By mid-morning, the room has warmed only a little, but the chill has left your fingertips, and the flax begins to answer more softly. Now you change to a finer hackle, its teeth closer together and more numerous. This one is less forgiving. It finds what the coarse teeth left behind, and it asks for a slower draw. You lift the prepared strick and lay it carefully across the points, spreading it so no part bears too much strain. The pull is longer now and quieter, and the fibers pass with a faint singing rasp that seems to settle into the wood around you. The finest combing is where the Rotterdam Flax Hackler earns patience. Too much speed would break the line, and too little attention would leave tangles that later hands must fight. You draw one side, turn the strick, and draw the other. Then open it gently with your fingers. The flax falls straighter each time. It looks more like a thing made by human care than by field and rain. There is a narrow comfort in work that tells you what to do next. The bundle in your hand is not abstract. It has weight, smell, color, and resistance. You can feel the dry coolness of it against your palm, and the rougher butt end where bits of plant memory remain. When the comb frees a small knot, the fibers loosen with a quiet relief, and your own breathing seems to loosen with them. A kettle may sit near a small stove if the room has one, though the heat is modest and the coal is watched carefully. Tea, weak coffee, or warmed milk might wait in a tin or cup, depending on the household and habit. You take your drink when the work allows, not when a bell commands it. The cup warms your fingers for a moment. Then the flax returns, cool and dry, and the rhythm resumes. The sound of Rotterdam beyond the wall comes and goes. A cart rolls over uneven stones. A barge horn gives a low note from the river. Somewhere, a door is pulled shut with a wooden thud, and the echo lies briefly in the yard. These outside sounds remind you that the city is large, but your work remains close. It fits within arm's reach. You clear the finer hackle more often. The waste court there is softer, almost downy in places, though it still holds splinters and short fibers that cannot join the best line. You pull it free in small tufts and lay it aside with the rest. Your fingertips learn the difference between useful tow and mere dust. It's a modest knowledge, but much of working life is built from modest knowledge carried faithfully. There are no grand gestures in hackling. The back must not stiffen too long in one posture. The wrists must turn without strain. The grip must be firm enough to hold, loose enough to release. You adjust yourself through the morning in small ways, setting one foot back, leaning from the hips, rolling one shoulder before it begins to ache. The body becomes part of the tool room. The flax itself has already traveled through many states before it reaches you. In the field, it grew as a blue-flowered plant, delicate in bloom, fibrous in stem, ready for pulling when the stalks yellowed and the seed heads began to turn. It was pulled rather than cut, to keep the fiber length. It was dried, rippled to remove seed, retted in water or dew so the gummy matter loosened, then dried again for breaking and scutching. By the time it meets your hackle in 1910s Rotterdam, it carries many weathered days inside it. You don't think through all those stages each time. Still, they are there in the smell. Retting leaves a note that is hard to confuse with anything else, earthy and sour and faintly sweet beneath the dust. Breaking leaves the woody shive hidden in corners. Scutching removes much, but never all. Hackling is the finishing of that long conversation between plant, water, tool, and hand. The more you work, the more the bench gathers small signs of the morning. Pale fibers cling to your sleeve. Dust lies near the base of the hackle. The sorted line flax forms a soft shining bundle, tied loosely so it does not kink. We can look at it now and feel the satisfaction of order slowly made. It is not spotless, not perfect, but it is cleaner, straighter, and ready for finer labor. When the bell from a nearby yard or church reaches the lane, softened by fog and distance, the morning seems to turn over quietly into its next part. You set the finished stricks aside and prepare another group, this one rougher than the last. The fibers are darker, with more grey and brown in them, and they carry a stronger smell of damp storage. Perhaps the bale sat nearer a warehouse wall, or perhaps the field was poorer, or the retting ran a little long. A Rotterdam Flax Hackler in the 1910s learns not to be offended by unevenness. Each bundle tells you how it must be handled. You shake the flax gently before laying it on the comb, and a few fragments fall to the floor like tiny pieces of straw. The floor is never perfectly clean during work. It holds dust, shive, old boot marks, and threads that cling to cracks between the boards. At day's end, a broom will gather much of it, but not all. Some of the trade will remain in the room, as smell remains in wool or smoke remains in brick. This rougher bundle asks for more time on the coarse hackle. You draw it through and feel the teeth catch hard at first, stopping your hand before the full length passes. Instead of forcing it, you lift the flax, loosen it, turn it, and try again. The second pull goes farther. The third opens the fibers a little more. Patience here is not an idea. It is the difference between saving length and making waste. The light through the window has changed from grey to dull white. It touches the dust on the sill, the rim of your cup, the upright needles of the hackle, and the fine strands lying across your sleeve. You may hear gulls nearer the harbour, though their cries are softened by the buildings. The air still tastes faintly of fibre. It sits on the tongue like dry flour. In a port city, materials arrive with stories attached, but they often lose those stories as soon as ledgers count them. Bales become weight, grade, price, and destination. Yet in your hands, the flax becomes particular again. This bundle is brittle at the ends. That one opens smoothly after 2 passes. Another hides shiv deep inside the line. You are not reading paper. You are reading touch. We can pause with that thought while your hands keep moving. Much of forgotten work was not forgotten because it lacked skill, but because the skill was quiet and close to the body. A ship's arrival could be recorded. A factory's output could be counted. But the exact pressure of your thumb on flax, the angle of your wrist, the small correction made before a fiber breaks, these things rarely entered history. The hackler knows the value of not pulling against the grain of the material. You let the fiber length guide the motion, drawing downward in a way that encourages separation. If a tangled patch appears, you don't fight it at once. You tease it apart, reduce the bundle slightly, and pass the smaller portion through. The work teaches a soft kind of reason. It says that not every knot loosens under force. Your hands grow dusty despite any care. Pale powder settles in the creases near the knuckles, and tiny fibers cling to the skin where warmth and moisture hold them. When you rub your thumb and finger together, you feel grit from the shive and smoothness from the line. The contrast is delicate. It's enough to guide you. By late morning, the first weariness enters the body in a quiet way. Not exhaustion, not strain, just the knowledge that shoulders are made of flesh and that repetition leaves a mark. You straighten, look toward the window, and let your eyes rest on the pale sky over the roofline. Then the next strick waits in your hand. The work returns without complaint. Somewhere nearby, someone may be rolling barrels or stacking sacks, and the dull knocks travel through the building. The sound is lower than your work, heavier, more public. Your own task remains almost private. Even when several hacklers share a room, each worker occupies a small weather of fiber, dust, comb, and breath. We stay inside yours, where the scrape of flax is steady as a slow tide. The rougher bundle finally begins to fall into order. Its good fibers separate from the waste, and though it will never be the finest grade, it has become useful and honest. You tie it loosely and place it with others like it. The tow pile is larger now, soft and unruly. It will have its own road through the trade, because old industries were often careful about scraps. And when the midday pause comes near, it does not arrive suddenly, but gathers slowly in the body, in the stomach, and in the softer light on the bench. You finish the pass you're making before you stop, because no worker likes to leave a bundle half opened on the teeth. The flax is lifted free, shaken lightly, and laid across the bench in a neat fall. Your hands clear the hackle, tugging out the caught toe and brushing loose dust away from the wooden block. The room is still full of work, but it has shifted into a quieter waiting. Even the iron teeth seem to rest. For the 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler, the noon meal may be simple and close at hand. Bread wrapped in cloth, a little cheese, perhaps a bit of smoked fish, a boiled egg or something left from home. The food tastes of salt, grain, and the faint dust on your fingers, unless you wash well first. A basin might stand near the door. The water is cold enough to wake the skin, and flax fibers float briefly on its surface before sinking. You sit where you can, on a stool, a crate, or the edge of a low step near the wall. The body is glad to fold differently after standing. Your knees loosen, your back settles, and your hands rest open on your lap for a moment. We can let the room breathe around you. Outside, Rotterdam carries on with wagons, bells, footsteps, and voices, while inside the bundles wait in their tied rows. There is a companionship in such a pause, even if no one says much. Workers in rooms like this might talk about weather, rent, family, ships in harbor, the price of coal, or the quality of the latest flax. They might say little at all. The quiet is not empty. It is full of chewing, cup rims, chair legs, a match struck for a pipe, and the low murmur of people who know the same tiredness. If there is a pipe, the smoke changes the room's smell for a while, laying warm tobacco over flax dust and damp wood. If there is no pipe, then the older smells remain, softened by food and human stillness. You notice the bench from a distance now, and the hackle looks almost severe. All those teeth waiting upright. In a few minutes it will be ordinary again. Tools often look sharper when the hand is not using them. The work is obscure because it sits between more visible labors. People remember the farmer in the field and the weaver at the loom. They remember the linen sheet, the sail, the collar, the tablecloth, and the bookbinding thread. But between the plant and the thread, someone must comb the fiber until it can be spun. Tonight, that hidden someone is you, and we take our time there. You turn a piece of bread in your fingers and look at the fibers clinging to your cuff. They are so fine they seem almost weightless, yet they come from a stem that stood in weather, held by roots, shaken by wind, and dried under a sky. There is comfort in materials that keep their history quietly. Linen begins in a field and ends in a household, but here it passes through your touch. The pause doesn't need to be long to restore a little steadiness. The cup empties, the cloth is folded, and the stool scrapes softly when you stand. You brush crumbs from your lap and flex your fingers before returning to the bench. The body remembers the motion before the mind asks for it. Work of this kind enters deeper than instruction. As the midday rest fades back into labor, the room gathers itself around the finer tasks, and your hands return to the comb with a slower, warmer certainty. The afternoon begins with prepared flax that has already survived the morning's rougher teeth. It lies beside you in pale bands, straighter now, more obedient, though still alive with small irregularities. You select a strick and feel the difference at once. It hangs longer from your grip, with fewer broken bits and less hidden stiffness. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler can read progress through the weight of a bundle. Now the finer hackles do their more delicate work. Their teeth stand close together, sometimes in rows that seem almost too dense for the flax to pass through. You lay the fibers across them and draw downward with a motion that begins in the shoulder, but is governed by the fingers. The scrape is softer than before. It's almost like cloth being pulled over a rough sleeve. The better lined flax shines faintly when separated. It is not bright like metal and not soft like wool, but it has a calm luster of its own. You turn it toward the window and see pale straw, ash gold, silver gray, and the slightest greenish memory in some strands. Such colors are quiet. They belong to material meant for use rather than display. You may dampen your fingers slightly if the fiber is too fly away, though too much moisture would be unwelcome. The work asks for balance. Dry flax separates cleanly, but very dry flax can become brittle and restless. Dampness can soften handling, but too much can make the fibers cling. So you learn the weather inside the room. As surely as a sailor learns wind, your own skin becomes an instrument. In Rotterdam, damp air is never far away. It comes from river, harbor, canal, rain, and stone. Some days it helps, keeping the flax from snapping too easily. Other days it brings a heaviness to stored bales and a chill that enters the sleeves. You don't argue with it. You adjust the work, open a bundle, set another aside, and choose the strick that answers best today. A merchant might care most for grade and price, a spinner might care for smoothness and length. You, standing between them, care for the transformation itself. The flax arrives tangled by its journey and leaves your bench more aligned than it came. There is a deep modesty in such work. It doesn't announce itself, yet everything afterward depends on it being done well enough. The afternoon light reveals what morning hid. You see small flecks lodged between fibers, little splinters of woody stem that survive the earlier stages. With a patient twist, you free them. Some fall to the floor. Some cling stubbornly to the comb until you clear them away. Your hands are not hurried, because hurried hands create more trouble than they solve. We can notice the sound of your breathing now, quiet beneath the scrape and lift. The day has narrowed into useful gestures. Draw the flax, lift it, turn it, draw again, clear the teeth, sort the toe, smooth the line, tie the bundle. Each action leads into the next like a familiar path through streets you could walk in fog. The city beyond the workshop has its own larger pattern. Ships come up river. Goods move through sheds. Clerks dip pens into ink and enter weights into ledgers. Coal smoke lowers itself over roofs. But here, with flax against your palm, the world is held in a smaller order. You don't need to hold the whole city. You only need to hold the bundle correctly. There is a particular feeling when a strick is nearly finished. It begins to flow through the finer hackle with less resistance, and the fibers fall together in a smooth curtain from your hand. The toe left behind is slight now, a soft fringe of what could not remain with the line. You shake the flax gently and bring the ends even. The motion is almost tender. The best line is sometimes twisted lightly into a loose form or tied for storage, depending on the workshop's habit and destination. You keep it from kinking. A sharp bend can trouble later spinning, and so the finished flax must be handled with the same care you used to prepare it. It may wait in bundles, pale and quiet, for a spinner's wheel or a machine frame. Its next life is already near. When afternoon settles fully into the walls, the work turns from merely combing to the quieter judgment of what has been made. You stand over the sorted flax and compare one finished bundle with another. This one is long and smooth, with a clean fall and few broken ends. That one has more body, less fineness, and a slightly harsher feel across the fingers. Another holds a duller color, but good strength. The Rotterdam Flax Hackler's judgment is not dramatic. It's a steady naming of differences that matter later. You run the fibers lightly over the back of your hand. Fine flax feels cool and sleek, almost like hair washed in rainwater and dried in a breeze. Coarser material speaks more roughly to the skin. It rasps, just a little, and catches on dry places near the knuckles. Your body becomes the scale. Your hands weigh what no ledger can fully describe. A label or mark may be attached to a group once the grading is done, though the system depends on the workshop and trade. Some distinctions are formal, some local, some carried by memory. You know which pile should not be mixed with which. You know that one careless bundle can lower the worth of a whole lot. So you work calmly, and you keep the grades apart. There is a quiet honesty to sorting. It does not pretend every bundle is the same. It gives each one its proper road. The finest may become smoother thread. The middling may become sturdy cloth or twine. The toe may serve humbler uses. Nothing is insulted by being placed where it belongs. In a working room, usefulness has many levels. The smell has thickened through the day. Warmed by bodies and motion, the flax gives off more of its dry plant scent, and the dust has settled into apron, hair, sleeve, and floor. If you step near the window, you smell outside air too, carrying coal smoke, river damp, and the sharpness of horse manure from the street. Rotterdam is never only one smell. It is trade, weather, labor, and water folded together. Your shoulders have learned the afternoon. They no longer ask when the task will end. They simply make the next motion, and then the next. This is one reason repetitive work can become strangely gentle when it is not driven too hard. The mind stops chasing novelty. It rests in knowing. Your hands become a place where time can pass without needing to be counted. We should remember that the hackler's skill often stood close to other textile labor. much of it underpaid, ordinary, and easily overlooked. Yet ordinary does not mean simple. A person could stand at this bench for years and still learn from each new lot of flax. Weather, soil, retting water, storage, and handling all leave marks. The fiber carries them, and you answer them. You pick up a darker strick and test it against the finer hackle. It resists too much. So you return it to a coarser comb for a few more passes, saving the good length instead of forcing it into a stage it isn't ready to meet. That small decision is the trade in miniature. Look closely, feel honestly, do the next fitting thing. The toe pile needs attention too. You loosen it, pull out larger shive fragments, and separate what is usable from what is merely dust and splinter. Toe has a softer, clouded look when gathered, though its short fibers make it less smooth. It may become coarse yarn after carding or further processing. Even the lesser material has texture, purpose, and a place in the chain. A fly may trouble the window for a while, ticking against the glass, confused by the light. You hear it between strokes, then lose it beneath the scrape of fiber. The kettle cools. The floorboards answer your shifting weight. Somewhere, a clock marks time with a small, practical sound. Nothing announces itself too loudly. The day continues in low tones. As the light begins to lean toward late afternoon, the bench no longer looks like the morning bench, because your work has changed the landscape of it. Finished flax lies in ordered bundles, where rough sheaves once waited. The coarse toe has been gathered to one side, and the finer waste sits apart, lighter in color and softer to the touch. The hackles need clearing more carefully now, because trapped fiber near the base can make tomorrow's work less clean. You use the wooden tool again, working between the teeth with slow attention. The iron gives a faint click when touched. For a 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler, keeping the tools in order is part of the labor, not an afterthought. The teeth must stay straight enough to comb, and the block must sit firm on the bench. A loose hackle wastes effort and makes the pull uncertain. You check it with your hand, pressing against the wood and feeling for movement. It holds. The old bench has another day left in it. You sweep your palm along the bench surface, gathering loose fibers into a small line. They cling to the skin. Some are too fine to pick up neatly, so you use a brush or cloth, moving them toward the edge. The sweep of cleaning has its own rhythm after the combing. It is broader, slower, less precise, but still part of the same quiet care. The floor underfoot is scattered with pale scraps. As you sweep, the dust lifts again, and the smell rises with it, dry and earthy. You work from the corners inward, not because anyone has written a rule, but because corners collect what the day forgets. The broom bristles rasp against wood. Little bits of shive click softly when they meet the dustpan. There is comfort in putting a workspace back into shape. It says the day has passed through and left evidence, but not disorder. The hackler's room is not made spotless. It could never be spotless while flax is worked there, but it can be made ready, and readiness is its own peace. We can feel that as you tie the last loose bundle and set it with the others. The finished line flax may be wrapped, stacked, or carried to another room, depending on how the workshop is arranged. You lift it with care because it is lighter than it looks in bulk, and because long fibers slide if held badly. Against your forearm, the bundle feels cool, smooth, and faintly springy. It has lost much of its roughness, but it has not lost its strength. Someone may come to take note of the day's work. A foreman, a merchant's man, a family member, or only another worker passing through. Few words are needed. The bundles themselves say what has been done. Their straightness is a record. Their grade is a record. The toe piles are a record too, in their own untidy way. The obscurity of the trade rests partly in this quiet evidence. A finished piece of linen may be prized, washed, folded, inherited, or sold. The hackled flax before spinning is a middle state, handled and then moved onward, seldom admired by anyone outside the work. Yet when you hold it, you know it has beauty. It catches light softly, like a pale ribbon made from fields. Rotterdam in the 1910s is changing quickly around such rooms. New docks, warehouses, rail lines, steam power, and international trade press the city into a more modern shape. But even in a modern port, materials still pass through hands. The future does not arrive all at once. It comes with old benches still in use, old gestures repeated under newer roofs, and workers like you carrying knowledge from one day to the next. Your fingers may be roughened at the pads from the dry fiber. Tiny scratches, hardly worth noticing, mark the skin where stray splinters touched. The nails hold pale dust at the edges. When you wash again, the water clouds slightly, and a few fibers cling to the basin. You rub your hands with plain soap if there is any, and the smell of flax does not entirely leave. The room grows quieter as others finish nearby tasks. A cart that was noisy all morning has gone. The street has a more hollow sound now, as if evening is opening space between footsteps. You look over the bench and see what remains to be done before the day can fold shut. Not much, but enough. Tools must be set right. Bundles must be protected from damp. Waste must be moved, and as the last working light thins along the window frame, your attention turns to the small duties that keep tomorrow from beginning in confusion. You cover or move the better flax first, because moisture is always waiting in a city of river air. A cloth, shelf, bin or dry corner may serve, depending on what the workshop has. You make sure the line is not pressed under anything heavy. Long fibers remember bends. They should lie easy, like hair combed and loosely gathered. Your hands settle them with care. The toe can be handled with less delicacy, but not carelessly. You gather it into sacks or baskets, pressing it down just enough to make room without matting it beyond use. It gives under your hands with a springy softness. Dust rises again, and you turn your head slightly until it settles. There is no resentment in the motion. This is simply what toe does. A Rotterdam Flax Hackler knows that the lesser products can keep a workshop economical. Toe, shive and sweepings all have uses or limits, and the day's waste tells a story about the quality of the incoming flax. Too much waste may mean poor retting, bad storage, rough earlier processing, or an inexperienced hand somewhere before yours. You notice it, not with alarm, but with the practical interest of someone who must work with what arrives. The hackles are checked once more. You remove a stubborn twist of fiber caught low among the teeth, where it could harden into a nuisance by morning. The iron is cold again now that your hands are slowing. When your knuckle brushes a pin, the touch is sharp but familiar. Every trade has tools that require respect. Respect, here, is mostly attention. You wipe the bench with a worn cloth. It doesn't shine exactly, but the day's loose dust gives way to the older polish beneath. That polish was made by years of elbows, palms, fiber, and cloth. It is not decorative, it is the sheen of use. You can rest your hand there for a moment and feel how many working days have passed over the same place. Outside the window, the sky has lowered into a flat evening grey. Lamps may be coming on in nearby streets, and their glow catches in damp air before true darkness arrives. The port does not stop, but your part of it is nearing rest. Some labor continues through the night elsewhere, with watchmen, stokers, crews, and late wagons. Here, the flax room is allowed to quiet down. We stay with the last motions because they matter. Sleep itself often likes a room being put right, a task completed without celebration, a hand placing the tool where it belongs. You set the wooden pick near the hackle. You hang or fold the apron. You brush fiber from the sleeves. Each little act loosens the day from your body. There may be a ledger mark made for the lot, perhaps noting weight, grade, source, or work completed. If writing is part of your task, the pen feels different after hours of fiber. Smooth, narrow, almost too delicate. Ink has its own smell, darker and wetter than flax dust. The scratch of nib on paper is a quieter cousin to the scrape of fiber on teeth. The names in such ledgers may outlast the touch that made them meaningful. A bale number, a weight, a merchant, a date in the 1910s. But no line of writing can fully hold the warmth of the room, the stiffness in your shoulders, the pale dust on your cuff, or the sound made by a good strick passing cleanly through a fine hackle. That part lives only while we imagine it carefully. You close a drawer, latch a box, or pull a cloth over the sorted bundles. The movement has finality, but not an ending. Tomorrow, more flax will wait. Another bale will open. Another day's weather will enter with it. The old trade continues by repeating itself, and repetition is not emptiness. It is how many useful things are kept alive. As evening gathers around the workshop, the room begins to smell less like labor in motion and more like stored material, resting wood, and cooling dust. You stand a moment before leaving the bench, letting your eyes move over the hackles, the bundles, the broom, the stool, and the small traces that remain despite cleaning. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler's day has not made noise enough for newspapers, and yet it has changed rough fiber into something closer to thread. You have taken what arrived tangled and made it ready for another pair of hands. That is enough for one room. The air near the door is cooler. When you open it, the smell of the street enters at once, carrying wet stone, coal smoke, river wind, and the evening traffic of a working city. Behind you the flax smell remains. It clings to the walls and the bench as if the room itself has been combed all day and now lies straightened in the dark. You step out slowly. Your body carries the motions with it. Even away from the bench, the hands remember drawing downward, lifting, turning, clearing, sorting. Some jobs leave their rhythm in the muscles long after the tools are set down. You may feel it while walking home, fingers opening and closing slightly inside your pockets. The mind drifts, but the body keeps a soft echo of the day. Rotterdam's streets in the evening are damp underfoot. Cartwheels have pressed dark tracks into the road, and the lamps make small blurred pools of light where mist gathers. A warehouse door stands open somewhere, showing a warmer square of yellow within. Men speak quietly near a wall. A bicycle passes with a faint clicking chain. You move among all of it as one worker among many. The obscurity of the flax hackler is not a failure of the work. It is simply the nature of work that happens between more noticeable stages. You are part of a chain that others may never see, and yet the chain would be weaker without you. There is a calm dignity in that. Not every useful life needs a sign above it. If your clothes are brushed at the doorway, still some fibers remain. They cling near the hem, along the sleeve seam, at the cuff, and perhaps in your hair. Later in lamplight, someone might pick one away without thinking. A little pale strand from the day's work. A trace of field, river, retting, warehouse, bench, and hand, all carried home in silence. We can let the walking be slow. Past the quay, the water moves with a dull shine under the last light. Barges sit low and dark. Masts and ropes make thin lines against the sky. The city smells of trade, but also of supper fires, damp wool, and the closeness of houses. After hours of dry fiber, the outside air feels broad, even when the streets are narrow. The hands may ache a little now, that they are no longer occupied. The ache is plain and ordinary, not dramatic, just a warmth in the palms and a tiredness at the wrists. You flex each finger once. The motion is small enough that no one notices. It belongs to you and to the day, like the pale dust that will wash away only partly. Tomorrow's flax is already somewhere nearby. Perhaps it rests in a warehouse bale, wrapped and marked. Perhaps it is on a cart, crossing stones before dawn. Perhaps it is still drying in another town, waiting to enter the chain. The thought does not hurry you. Work will find the morning when morning comes. For now, the day loosens. The workshop is behind you, but not gone. In the mind, the bench remains lit by the small window, and the hackles stand in patient rows. The bundles lie sorted, the tow is gathered, and the floorboards hold the faint scent of dust. We can return there whenever the narration turns back, because such rooms are built from repeating gestures, and repeating gestures are easy to enter again. And when the next morning opens, it does so quietly, with the same damp streets, the same waiting bench, and a new bundle of flax needing your hands. The door gives a familiar sound as you enter, a little scrape at the bottom, and a small wooden knock when it settles back into place. The room is colder than your body remembers. Overnight, the damp has returned to the brick and the floor, and the hackle teeth feel almost frosty to the first touch. You set down your things, breathe in the old plant smell, and let the work find its shape again. In 1910s Rotterdam, many days begin this way for a flax hackler, without announcement or change. The repetition is not a blankness. Each morning carries its own weather, its own lot of fiber, its own light at the window. Today the sky is clearer, and the room seems a shade brighter. The flax waiting on the bench shows more yellow than grey. You untie the first bundle and spread it gently. The fibers open with a soft, dry sound, and a few loose pieces fall across the bench. This lot is better than yesterday's rougher bale. You can feel it before you fully see it. The stems were likely retted with care and dried cleanly, because the line separates with less struggle. Your hand moves with an easier confidence. The coarse hackle receives the bundle first, though it may not need many passes. You draw down, lift, shake, and draw again. The teeth catch some toe, but not much. The long fibers remain together, and they fall straighter after each pull. There is a quiet pleasure in good material. It makes the worker look skilled, though the skill is also in knowing not to overwork it. The window glass holds a little mist at the corners. As the room warms from bodies and motion, tiny beads of moisture fade. Outside, morning carts pass, and their wheels sound sharper today on drier stones. You hear gulls again, and a distant whistle from the water. The city's larger day begins, but inside the flax answers only to your hand. We notice how quickly the body returns to yesterday's knowledge. The shoulders settle at the correct height. The elbows find their distance from the bench. The fingers hold the butt end without crushing it. No one needs to explain the sequence. A craft once lived long enough becomes a set of remembered comforts as well as duties. The better fiber moves soon to the finer comb. You use less pressure and more patience, though the work goes smoothly. The sound is delicate, almost silky, as the flax passes between the closer teeth. The line shines softly in the improved light. You turn it once and see the strands lie beside one another like pale water flowing down from your grip. This is the part that someone outside the trade might never imagine. Hackling is not merely ripping fibers through spikes. It is listening through the hand. You feel resistance, readiness, brittleness, dampness, and length. You know when to stop because the bundle tells you. To continue beyond that point would be wasteful. To stop before, it would be lazy. The right moment is quiet and exact. The first finished strick of the morning lies clean and long on the bench. You smooth it lightly, bring the ends into order, and place it with care. It gives the day a good beginning. There will be rougher bundles later, because there always are, but for now the work has opened kindly. The room feels less cold. Your breath no longer shows near the door. As the morning grows brighter, the easy lot allows your attention to wander gently into the older history of the fiber passing through your hands. Flax has been worked for so long that no single city can claim it. Long before Rotterdam's modern docks and steam cranes, people pulled flax by hand, retted it in ponds or streams, broke the stems, combed the fibers, and spun linen for clothing, sale, and household use. You don't need to stand outside time to feel that. The proof is in the bundle. It asks for old motions. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler belongs to an industrial city, but the hand still repeats an ancient gesture. Iron teeth replaced older bone, wood or simple combing tools in many places, and machines later took more of the labor, yet the purpose stayed familiar. Separate the long from the short. Clear the waste. Align the fiber. Prepare it for twist. The work is old because the plant requires it. You draw another bundle through and watch the toe gather in a fine fringe. Every stage of flax processing depends on loosening bonds without destroying strength. Retting loosens the natural gums that hold fiber to stem. Breaking cracks the woody core. Scutching knocks much of that core away. Hackling combs what remains. Each step is a kind of persuasion. None is helped by anger. The room holds that lesson in its objects. The bench is heavy because it must not shift. The hackles are sharp because the fiber must be divided. The ties are soft because finished flax must not be marked. The broom is worn because dust is a constant companion. Nothing here is ornamental, yet everything has form shaped by use. You can trust objects that have been refined by need. A faint warmth enters where sunlight touches the wall. It does not heat the room much, but it changes the mood of the wood. The pale bundles look less grey. The iron teeth glint briefly when you move. Your sleeve brushes the bench and lifts a few fibers, which cling there like strands of light. We stay with these small changes because they are the true weather of the work. There may be other workers nearby, each at a bench or task, and their motions create a shared hush. Not silence, exactly, but a woven quiet. Scrape, lift, brush, step, clear, breathe. Now and then someone speaks a few words. The answer comes low. Then the room returns to its labor, as if conversation itself has been combed smooth and set aside. The good lot does not make you careless. If anything, it asks for more care, because long fine fiber can be spoiled by a rough hand. You reduce the bundle before the finer hackle, working smaller portions so the teeth can pass evenly through. The result is slower than greed would like, and better than haste would make. Your patience preserves length. By now, the first hour has passed without needing to be counted. The pile of finished flax has grown, and the waste is modest. Your hands have warmed fully, and the dry rasp of fiber feels almost pleasant. It is one of those mornings when the work seems to agree with the worker. Nothing grand happens. That is part of its peace, and when the easier flax is finished, the day turns naturally toward the mixed bales, where your judgment must become slower again. The next bundle comes from a lot with uneven color. Some strands are pale and fine, while others are darker, harsher, and more tangled near the butt. You separate a portion with your fingers before beginning, because treating the whole bundle as one would make unnecessary waste. A Rotterdam Flax Hackler learns to divide before combing, to ask what belongs together and what should travel separately. The coarse hackle takes the darker portion first. It catches heavily, and the first pull stops halfway down. You lift, shake, and loosen the fibers by hand, feeling for the hidden crossing that caused the snag. There it is, a twist left from earlier handling. You open it gently, lay the flax again, and draw with a steadier angle. This time the teeth pass through. The sound is rougher now, more like dry reeds dragged across a fence. It fills the room without being loud. Bits of chiffar fall in small brittle pieces, and the toe clumps thickly near the base of the iron teeth. You clear them more often. Your fingers move carefully between the pins. The tool is patient, but it does not forgive absent-mindedness. A smell rises from this bundle that is stronger than the morning's better lot. It has more of the retting water in it, a low, earthy scent that brings to mind ditches, pond edges, wet straw, and the underside of old boards. You can almost imagine the flax lying in bundles under water, weighted down until the stems gave up their hold. That memory returns now as smell. The plant keeps its past. You work the rough portion until it improves, then place it in a middling pile. It will serve, though not for the finest thread. The better portion from the same bundle receives lighter handling and joins a higher grade. This is the quiet fairness of the bench. You don't judge by the outer tie alone. You open, test, feel, and decide. The work rewards attention more than assumption. The dust thickens again with the rougher material. It settles near your eyelashes and at the edge of your collar. You step back, take a slow breath away from the bench, then return. The old rooms often had dust, because the work made dust, and ventilation was not always generous. Still, you learn where to stand, when to clear, and how to keep the air from becoming too heavy around your face. We can hear the brush moving over the teeth as you clean them. It makes a small stiff sound, different from flax passing through. The waste drops into your hand or onto the bench, and you sort it without thinking too loudly about it. Two here, shiv there, dust to be swept. The mind rests inside categories made by the hands. Some jobs ask the worker to ignore difference. This one asks you to notice difference all day. Fine, coarse, long, short, clean, tangled, dry, damp, brittle, strong. Yet the noticing remains gentle. It does not sharpen the mood, it softens it. Because every distinction leads to a next motion. And every next motion has a place. The city outside may be speeding toward modernity. but the flax in your hand refuses to be rushed beyond its nature. It grew at the pace of weather. It retted at the pace of water and microbial change, though you would not name it that at the bench. It dries, breaks, combs, and spins only when each stage has done enough. Your trade respects that old tempo. By late morning, you have worked through the uneven lot and left the bench more ordered than it was before. Several grades now lie where one mixed bundle began. The toe pile has grown again, but usefully. Your hands rest briefly on the bench edge. The wood is warmer now, and so are you. The light through the window shifts, and with it comes the part of the day when small maintenance becomes as necessary as combing. You take time to examine the hackles more closely. Fine flax can reveal problems in the teeth because a bent pin catches where it should guide. You lean near the block and see dust gathered at the base, along with tiny fibers wound around 2 or 3 points. With the wooden pick, you loosen them. The motion is slow, almost like cleaning a comb after washing hair. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler depends on tools that look plain but require care. If the teeth rust, the fibers drag. If they loosen, the pull becomes uneven. If the block shifts, the wrist works too hard. You wipe the metal lightly and feel for any rough place that might harm the line. Maintenance is work done for the future self, and tomorrow's hands will thank today's patience. A little oil may be used sparingly on nearby metal parts or tools, though not carelessly near the flax. Oil has a rich, dark smell, unlike the dry sweetness of fiber. It belongs to hinges, bolts, and machines more than to the line itself. The workshop is a meeting of such smells: plant, iron, wood, water, coal, soap, sweat, ink, and sometimes tobacco, all living quietly under the roof. You adjust the bench position by a fraction, perhaps wedging a small piece beneath one leg where the floor is uneven. The improvement is modest, but the body notices. A bench that rocks even slightly makes a long day longer. You press down again. It holds steady. The next drawer across the hackle feels cleaner because the tool no longer argues beneath you. There is humility in maintenance. No one praises a tool for simply working as it should, and no one marks the minute you spent making that possible. Yet many peaceful afternoons are built from such minutes. You clear, wipe, straighten, tighten, test, and return to the fiber. The world becomes easier by very small corrections. A worker might keep personal habits around the bench: the cloth folded a certain way, the cup placed beyond the sweep of dust, the better bundles laid to the left, the middling to the right, or the reverse if your hands prefer it. Such habits are not superstition. They are memory made visible. They let the work proceed while the mind stays soft. The next bundle waits while you finish tending the hackle. It is tied with rough cord, and the knot has tightened during storage. You worry it loose with your thumb rather than cutting it, because the cord may be useful again. Even the tying string has a place. In old workshops, economy often lived in small salvaged things. When the bundle opens, it releases a smell like dry grass warmed by a faint hidden damp. You spread it and find a fair amount of shiv still clinging near the base. This will take work. The hackle receives it with a gritty sound, and bits of stem begin to fall. Your newly steadied bench makes the motion smoother. The maintenance has already returned its value. We keep moving at this pace because the work itself will not be hurried. The rough fibers need repeated passes, but each pass does something. You can see the change in the growing clarity of the line. You can feel it in the lessening drag. What was stubborn becomes workable, not all at once, but by degrees. The morning now has a fuller sound beyond the wall. More feet pass the lane. A door opens and stays open. Someone laughs once, not loudly, and the sound disappears under wagon wheels. Inside, your hands draw the flax again. The contrast is soothing. The city may scatter itself into many errands, but this room gathers attention into one task. And as midday approaches once more, the thought of food and rest returns gently, carried in the body before it reaches the mind. You finish the bundle you've begun, even though the pause is near. Leaving it rough and half-sorted would make the return less pleasant. So you take it through the last needed passes, clear the teeth, and lay the middling line in its proper place. The toe is gathered loosely. The bench is not clean, but it is orderly enough to stop. Your hands are slower when you unwrap the midday food. Today there may be brown bread, butter, if there is some, and a small piece of cheese wrapped in paper. The taste is plain and welcome. After the dust of flax, even a drink of water feels fresh. You swallow and feel the throat clear a little. The body accepts simple things without ceremony. The room during rest has a different clock. No one is drawing fiber, so the small sounds come forward. A cup set down, a shoe shifting on wood, a sleeve brushed free of dust, the street beyond the window, your own breathing. We sit with these sounds because they are part of the trade too. The quiet underside of labor where the worker becomes still enough to notice being tired. A conversation may turn to the river level, to a delayed delivery, to the weather that will make storage troublesome, or to the rumor of more machine work coming into some larger establishment. Such talk is ordinary and low. No one speaks as if history is happening. People speak of work, wages, families, and weather. Later, someone else may call it an era. At the bench, it is only Thursday or Monday or another day much like the last. You look at your palms while you rest. The lines of the skin are pale with dust, and one small fiber lies across the base of the thumb. You lift it away. It curls lightly, almost weightless. Something so slight has occupied the whole morning. That thought could make the day feel small, but instead it makes attention feel large. In the 1910s Rotterdam Flax room, the rest is never separate from the work waiting after it. The bundles remain in view. The hackles stand upright, catching the light with their narrow points. The toe pile has softened at the edges. The broom leans nearby. Everything waits without impatience. Tools are good companions in that way. When you stand again, the legs feel the first steps. The back asks to be straightened. The hands close and open once before touching the flax. Then the old rhythm begins to return, not abruptly, but like a tune remembered after hearing only a few notes. Grip, lay, draw, lift. The afternoon takes you back, and, after the midday pause, the work becomes quieter still, because the body has accepted the day and no longer asks it to be different. The first afternoon bundle feels a little warmer than it would have in the morning, because the room has been breathing around it for hours. You lift it from the bench, and the fibers slide softly against one another, not quite smooth yet, but willing. The hackle teeth wait with their narrow shine, and you lay the flax across them as if setting cloth over a rail. Then the pull begins again, steady from shoulder to wrist, with the hand listening all the way down. After the pause, sounds arrive differently. The scrape of flax seems lower, less sharp, as though the room itself has settled into the second half of the day. You hear a cart outside, then the hollow call of someone near the quay, then the small hush as your bundle moves through iron. We stay close to that hush. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler's afternoon is made from such repeated passages, each one taking a little disorder away. This bundle has a slight twist near the middle, where the fibers have dried against one another and held their shape. You feel it before you see it, because the pull tightens in your fingers. Rather than forcing the flax, you lift it free, spread the strands, and open the twist with your thumb. The fibers release slowly, a few short pieces fall away, and the long line remains. The work teaches you to notice resistance without becoming troubled by it. A snag is not a failure. It is only a place that asks for a different angle, a smaller portion, or another pass through a coarser comb. You learn to answer the material with less effort than you once used. The older hands in such rooms often look unhurried because they have stopped wasting motion. By now, the apron is well dusted. Pale fibers lie on the front in soft streaks, and the cloth smells of flax whenever you lean forward. Your sleeves carry the same trace. If you brush them, more dust rises, then settles on the bench again, returning to the room that made it. Nothing really leaves until the day is done. The finished bundle grows slowly beside you. Each strick is placed with the butt ends aligned and the fibers falling in the same direction. That order matters. Later handling will be easier if today's care is not undone by careless stacking. You smooth the top lightly with your palm. It feels cool, sleek and dry, like a calm current of plant fiber resting under your hand. The better flax makes a different kind of waste from the rougher bales. Its toe is finer, lighter and more delicate, almost feathery when lifted from the teeth. Still, it cannot join the long line, because the spinner needs length and continuity. You place it aside without regret. In a workshop like this, every grade is known for what it can do, not for what it cannot be. A little more light has come through the high window, and the dust crossing it looks almost golden. That is only the angle of the afternoon, but it softens the room. The iron teeth seem less severe. The wood grain on the bench shows dark and pale lines where years of work have rubbed it smooth. Your hand passes over those lines again and again, as naturally as breathing. When the next bundle is opened, it carries the smell of the warehouse more strongly. You catch a hint of old sacking, damp rope, and the closed air of storage beneath the plant scent. The fiber is not spoiled, only marked by where it has waited. Rotterdam is full of waiting materials. Bales wait for buyers, ships wait for tides, workers wait for bells, and flax waits for the hand that can make it ready. You begin with the butt end and let the teeth catch the shortest, roughest fragments first. The motion is firmer now, though still controlled. Small pieces of woody shive fall like brittle crumbs, tapping the bench before they drop to the floor. You hear each little sound when the room is quiet enough. It is a dry, tiny clicking, almost private. We can imagine how little of this would be seen by anyone using the finished linen. A shirt collar does not tell you about the hackle. A sheet does not tell you about the dust. A sail does not tell you about the worker who stood in a Rotterdam room, sorting long fibers from short ones until the material could become thread. Yet the cloth remembers in its strength, even if the owner does not. The afternoon moves without much change, and that is why it becomes restful to enter. You are not asked to solve a new problem every minute. You are asked to apply the same careful attention to each new bundle, allowing its differences to become known through touch. The repetition gives the mind a narrow path. It can walk there without strain. As the light leans farther along the bench, the work turns toward the bundles that need the most patient sorting, and your hands slow to meet them. The next lot is not poor, but it is mixed, and mixed flax asks for judgment before strength. You loosen the tie and spread the fibers into a fan across the bench. The color changes from pale straw at one edge to dull gray-brown at the other, with several darker streaks running through the middle. You separate those streaks gently. They may be coarser fiber, or simply flax that carried more damp in storage. In the 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler's room, this kind of sorting is part of the day's quiet intelligence. A clerk may write a grade on a bale, but the bale can still contain variety. You find the truth of it with your fingers. One portion hangs smooth, another feels wiry, and another clings together with dust and shive. The bench becomes a small map of differences. You choose the smoother portion first, perhaps because good flax deserves not to be dragged through unnecessary roughness. It passes through the coarse hackle with only a light catch, and soon it is ready for the finer teeth. The sound changes from rasp to whisper. The fibers straighten beautifully, and the finished line falls from your hand with a soft gleam in the dim light. The coarser portion needs more labor. It catches, releases, catches again, and leaves more toe behind. Your wrist turns slightly to follow the line of the fibers. The angle matters more than force. When the pull goes cleanly, you feel a small satisfaction, not enough to wake the room, only enough to ease the next breath. There is warmth now at the back of your neck, not from sun, but from work and from the thickening afternoon air. The room is still not truly warm, yet your body has made its own weather inside your clothes. The flax dust sticks more easily to skin. You wipe your hand on the apron and return to the bundle. A worker's comfort often depends on such small adjustments. Outside, the city sounds are beginning to change. Morning urgency has passed, and the late afternoon traffic has not fully started. There is a lull when wheels sound farther apart, voices seem lower, and the harbor's larger noises arrive as if from another world. In that lull, the hackle's scrape becomes the main sound again, It draws the room around you. You clear the teeth and examine the waste. There are short fibers worth saving as tow, and there are hard bits of stem fit only for sweeping away. The distinction is made by eye, touch, and habit. Your fingers pull the useful softness from the brittle fragments, and the tow joins its proper pile. Nothing about it feels grand. It feels necessary, and necessity can be gentle when it is understood. The mixed bundle gradually becomes several smaller certainties: fine line, middling line, coarser toe. Dust and shive, what began as a tied confusion now rests in separate places, each one clear enough for the next worker or next use. This is one of the quiet pleasures of industrial process at the human scale. You can see what your attention has arranged. You pause to flex your fingers, then take up the next portion. The skin at the base of your thumb is tender from gripping, though not painfully so. Years at the work would make calluses in useful places. Even a single long day teaches the hand where pressure gathers. You adjust your hold a little, and the next pull is easier. The smell of the coarser fiber is earthier, as if more of the field stayed trapped inside it. You think of low wet land beyond the city, of flax laid out in rows under changing sky, of rain darkening the stems and sun drying them again. That world is not separate from this room. It has come in through the bale, through the fiber, and into your hands. When this sorting is done, the bench looks clearer, and your thoughts seem clearer with it. There is a quiet relief in making distinctions without argument. The material does not need to become something it is not. It only needs to be understood and prepared. You smooth the finished piles, and let your hands rest a moment on the old wood, and as the last rough bundles of the afternoon wait nearby, the room settles into a deeper rhythm, the kind that belongs to work nearly finished but not yet over. You take a bundle from the back of the stack, one that has been waiting since morning, tied firmly and slightly bent from its place against the wall. When you open it, the fibers spring apart unevenly, and a faint dusty cloud rises. This one will not be quick. You feel that at once, and because you feel it, you slow down before the hackle has even touched it. The Rotterdam Flax Hackler's patience is most visible with difficult fiber. Fine flax lets the worker move gracefully, but rough flax shows whether the hand can remain calm. You divide the bundle into smaller portions, each narrow enough to pass without tearing. The first portion goes to the coarse hackle. It catches hard, then yields a little, and the sound is low and scratchy. You lift, shake, open and draw again. The short fibers come away in clumps, and pieces of shiv gather near the teeth. The long fibers are hidden at first, buried in roughness, but they are there. You keep finding them. A careless worker might turn too much of this into waste. Your job is to save what can be saved without pretending it is finer than it is. The floor now has more straw-like fragments scattered across it. They crunch faintly under your shoe when you shift position. You make a small space with the side of your foot, then continue. The work area grows messy during honest labor. Cleaning can wait until order has been made in the material itself. First the flax, then the floor. There is a softness in the light now that tells you the day has passed its highest point. The window no longer throws brightness across the bench. Instead, it holds a pale glow that rests on the fibers without shining. Your eyes adjust to smaller contrasts. You see shape more than color. The hands take over what the light no longer explains. The rough bundle improves slowly. After several passes, it begins to separate into a usable line and a generous toe. The line is not long enough for the finest work, but it is stronger than it looked when tied. You feel that strength when you pull a few fibers gently between your fingers. They resist, fine and quiet. Flax often hides strength in plainness. We can linger here, because this is the heart of the forgotten job. Not the dramatic moment, not the finished cloth, but the patient saving of useful fiber from a mass of tangles and splinters. You draw the plant through iron teeth again and again, and each time the material becomes a little more itself. There is no hurry. The room would not know what to do with hurry. A little ache gathers between your shoulders. You straighten carefully, not sharply, and let your hands rest against the bench edge. The wood is firm and warm from the day. Your breath moves the dust just in front of you. Then you lean in again, because the bundle is not done, and because the next pass is simple. The coarsest waste is set apart. It will not be used in the same way as tow, but even shive may have humble purposes in some places, as bedding, fuel, packing, or simply sweepings. The old economies of plant work are practical and layered. They ask what each remnant can still offer. You may not decide every later use, but you prepare the separation that makes use possible. The room has grown quieter among the workers, if others are there. Late afternoon speech often thins. People save words when the body is tired. The scrape of combing, the brush of clearing, and the shift of feet become enough. You are accompanied without needing conversation. Shared work can be companionable in silence. The last portion of the rough bundle passes more easily than the first. Your hands have learned its character. You know where it catches, how small to make each section, and when to return to the coarse hackle instead of forcing the fine one. That knowledge came only through doing. It arrived slowly, inside the afternoon. And when the difficult bundle finally lies sorted, the bench seems to exhale with you, leaving only the last careful passes before evening. The remaining flax for the day is already partly prepared, set aside earlier because it needed only finishing. You take it now with some gratitude, feeling the smoother fall of the fibers and the lighter work it promises. The finer hackle receives it cleanly. The sound is soft and narrow, almost like a distant brush on cloth. After the rough bundle, this feels like water moving through reeds. In 1910s Rotterdam, the day's final finishing would not always be the finest work, because tired hands can make mistakes. Yet some prepared flax asks only for gentle completion, and that is suited to the fading hour. You keep the portions small. You let the teeth guide rather than grab. You watch the line fall straight and pale from your hand. The room smells different near evening. The morning chill is gone, replaced by warmed dust, worked fiber, old wood, and the faint human salt of a day spent indoors. If a stove has been lit, a thread of coal smoke or warm metal joins the air. The mixture is not sweet exactly, but it is familiar. Workplaces have their own weather, and by evening you wear it. You turn the flax and pass it again through the fine teeth. The fibers are now nearly aligned, and only the smallest waste comes away. It collects like pale lint at the base of the hackle. Your fingertips clear it delicately, because the teeth are close and sharp. A tiny prick reminds you where the iron is. You pause, then continue. The finished line has a satisfying looseness when shaken. It does not clump or spring back into tangles. It hangs, separates, and returns together, as if it has accepted its next life. You bring the ends even with a few light strokes of your hand. The movement is slower now, almost ceremonial, though no one would call it that aloud. There is a reason the work suits a sleepy telling. It moves in cycles that the mind can follow without being startled. A bundle enters rough and tied. It opens, passes through coarse teeth, passes through finer teeth, sheds waste, gains order, and rests in a pile. Then another bundle comes. The day is a sequence of quiet arrivals and quieter departures. You may think of the spinner who will take this line later. Perhaps in a larger mill, perhaps in a smaller room, perhaps by hand in an older setting. The fibers will be drawn and twisted into thread. Spinning gives the flax its continuous strength. Weaving will cross that strength into cloth. But before any of that, your combing has made the line willing to follow. The last finishing bundle leaves very little tow. That is a sign of the morning's good judgment in setting it aside. You place it with the higher grade and note its color, smoothness, and length. It lies there like pale hair in a loose gathered fall. The fading light gives it a silver tone. For a moment, the humble material looks almost luminous. A worker passing by might glance at it and know without comment that the day has produced something decent. There is no need for praise. Recognition in such rooms is often practical and brief. A nod, a touch of the bundle, a word about grade, then the work moves on. Still, you feel the small inward steadiness that comes from having done a careful thing. The window has begun to reflect the room faintly. You can see a dim shape of bench and movement in the glass, mingled with the grey outside. The city beyond it is still there, but less distinct. Your own workspace becomes more present as daylight withdraws. The hackle teeth, the bundles, the broom, and your hands make the world small and sufficient. As the final flax is laid with the rest, the task shifts again, from making order in the fiber to making order around the bench. You start by clearing the finer hackle, because leaving fibers caught there overnight would be poor care. The wooden pick moves between the teeth, lifting small mats of tow and dust from the base. The motion is exact, but unhurried. Each loosened tuft is pinched away and laid with the waste. The iron looks cleaner after every pass. The coarse hackle needs rougher clearing. Larger pieces have lodged near the lower rows, twisted around the pins by repeated pulling. You work them free bit by bit. Sometimes a fiber resists, stretched tight around two teeth, and you unwind it with the point of the tool. The sound is a faint, dry snap when it finally comes away. Then the teeth stand open again. For the Rotterdam Flax Hackler, tool care is a kind of promise to the next morning. You are not only ending today, you are making it possible to begin tomorrow without disorder. That thought is gentle rather than burdensome. The future here is just another bench, another bundle, another hand finding the familiar grip. You gather the tow by grade as well as you can. The finer tow goes in one place, the coarser in another, and the sweepings are kept separate. The piles have different textures when handled. Fine tow lifts like soft tangled hair. Coarse tow grips itself. Sweepings are gritty and broken, with shive, dust and floor fragments mixed through. Your fingers know the difference even in low light. The broom comes last, or nearly last. You draw it across the floor in long strokes, listening to bristles rasp along wood and catch in the cracks. Dust gathers in pale ridges. Shive clicks softly into the pile. A few long fibers cling to the broom and must be pulled away by hand. Cleaning after flax is never entirely clean. It is only better, and better is enough. The air stirs as you sweep, and the day's smell rises again from the floor. It is stronger near the ground, where dust has settled all afternoon. You turn your face slightly and continue. The pile in the dustpan is light but bulky, an airy collection of the work's leftovers. It seems almost weightless, though it represents many hours of touch. You wipe the bench with a cloth, starting where the hackles sit and moving outward. Fine dust dulls the cloth at once. You fold it over and wipe again, revealing the worn surface beneath. There are small cuts in the wood, dark marks from old tools, and smooth areas where countless hands have rested. The bench has kept more history than any written notice on the wall. A few finished bundles must be shifted to a safer place. You lift them carefully, keeping their length supported so they do not bend sharply. Against your sleeve, they feel smoother than they looked at dawn. The difference is your day made visible. You lay them in the dry place prepared for them, away from the worst of the damp and away from rough handling. Outside, footsteps pass closer to the window. Someone speaks a name, then laughs softly, then continues down the lane. The sound reminds you that other workers are ending their own tasks in other rooms, yards, kitchens, shops, and sheds. Each has a closing ritual. Yours is fiber, iron, broom, cloth, and bundles laid straight. We can feel how the body changes when the work no longer asks for force. The shoulders drop, the hands grow slower. The mind starts to loosen from the sequence of combing and sorting, though traces of the rhythm remain. The day is not done, but it is becoming quieter by degrees, and the room follows. When the bench is clear enough and the bundles are set away, the last duties gather in small corners, where overlooked fibers still wait. You check beneath the bench, where pale strands cling to the legs and collect against the wall. The broom reaches awkwardly there, and you lean down, feeling the pull in your back after the long day. A small nest of tow comes free. It is dusty and not fine enough for much, but you gather it anyway. Waste left hidden invites more disorder tomorrow. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler's room has many such corners. Behind a crate, under the stool, along the baseboard where damp air darkens the wood, near the door where boots have carried street grit into the fiber dust. You move through them slowly, The work of ending is quieter than the work of making, but it requires the same steady attention. You find a few longer fibers that escaped the bench and landed near the wall. They are not spoiled. You lift them carefully and place them with the lower grade, where they may still serve. It would be easy to sweep them away without looking, but the habit of noticing remains with you. Once the hands are trained to save length, they do it almost without asking. A small cloth bag or basket holds the useful toe. You press it down gently and tie it closed. It gives slightly under your palm, soft and springy. Another container takes the coarse sweepings. The difference between the two is clear now, though it began in one plant. Process has separated the plant's possibilities into paths. The tools are arranged where morning will find them. Wooden pick near the hackles. Brush within reach. Broom leaning bristles down. Ties gathered instead of left scattered. Cup moved away from dust. Each placement reduces a future irritation. There is kindness in that, even if the kindness is directed only toward your own tired self tomorrow. The room's light is now mostly borrowed from the doorway and the pale window. If a lamp is lit, it changes everything. The flax becomes warmer in color. The iron teeth cast thin shadows, and the dust in the air appears only when it crosses close to the flame or glass. Lamplight makes the workshop feel older, even in a modernizing city. It brings the bench back into a slower century. You may make a mark for the finished work, whether in memory, on a tag, or in a ledger if that belongs to your duties. The figures are practical, not decorative. Weight, lot, grade, perhaps destination. Your hand, used all day to the wide pull of flax, must now manage the smaller motion of writing. The pen feels narrow, the paper feels smooth and cool. Ink has a smell that cuts through the flax for a moment. It is dark, wet, and faintly metallic. The nib scratches lightly, and the sound is almost too small after a day of scraping fiber. You let the writing dry before closing the book or moving the tag. Even this pause has its place. Wet ink, like tangled flax, punishes haste. The day's record cannot say how the fiber felt. It cannot say that the second bundle afternoon resisted near the middle, or that the best line shone silver in the late light, or that your thumb found a hidden twist before the teeth tore it. But the record does what it can. It leaves a trace for trade, while the fuller memory remains in the body. And as the lamp glow steadies and the outside air cools against the window, the workshop begins to feel less like a place of labor and more like a room holding its breath. You stand near the bench and listen. Without the combing, the room has layers of quiet, a drip somewhere beyond the wall, a cart farther away, the soft settling creak of wood after a day of weight and movement, your own sleeve brushing your side. The stillness is not empty, because it contains everything that has just been done. The Rotterdam Flax Hackler's tools are plain in their rest. The hackle teeth point upward, no longer combing, only catching the low light. The broom leans in the corner with pale fibers tangled in its bristles despite your cleaning. The bench shows a faint dusting again, because dust always returns. You accept that. A room used for flax will never look untouched. You remove your apron carefully, shaking it only where the dust can fall in a useful place. The cloth is stiffer than it was at dawn, marked by fiber, powder, and the day's motions. When it is hung, it keeps a rough shape of the body for a moment before relaxing. Your shirt beneath feels lighter, though the smell of flax has passed through. Work has a way of entering layers. You brush your sleeves again, then your cuffs. A few fine strands float loose and drift toward the floor. They move slowly, almost without weight, turning in the cooler air. One catches on the bench edge, another clings to the dark fabric near your wrist. You pick it away and watch it fold over itself in your fingers. Your hands go to the basin. The water is colder now. It tightens the skin and carries away the surface dust, turning faintly cloudy as you rub palm against palm. Soap lifts some of the smell, but not all. Flax remains in the creases, in the nails, perhaps even in the skin for a while. You dry your hands on a rough cloth that has dried many hands before. There is a tender plainness in washing after labor. The hand that held the bundle becomes simply a hand again, though it keeps the day's knowledge. The thumb may feel tender, the wrist may hum faintly, the palms may be scratched by tiny marks that only you notice. You flex your fingers and let them uncurl slowly. If others are leaving too, the room fills briefly with the soft disorder of departure. A stool pushed in, a coat lifted from a peg, a last word about the morning's work to come, the latch tested, the lamp lowered or shielded. Then one by one, people pass into the street, carrying their own dust with them. The air outside feels damp and broad. It touches your face after the closed room, bringing the smell of river water, stone, smoke and evening meals from nearby houses. Rotterdam's port is still awake in parts, but your task has ended for now. The change from fiber dust to open air is almost like taking a longer breath. You slow your steps to match it. Behind you, the flax room remains arranged for morning. That matters more than it seems. The bundles are safe from damp. The hackles are cleared. The toe is sorted. The bench is wiped. Tomorrow will have its own difficulties, but it will not inherit needless confusion from today. There is peace in leaving a room ready. As you walk away from the workshop, the rhythm of hackling stays with you, quiet enough to become part of the evening. Your hands hang at your sides, but they still remember the downward draw. Sometimes the fingers close slightly, as if feeling the butt end of a bundle. Then they open again. The body repeats what the day has taught it, even when there is nothing left to hold. Such echoes are common in repetitive trades. They are the aftersound of work inside muscle. The street stones hold the day's damp. Lamplight spreads over them in uneven patches, and cart tracks shine darker where wheels have passed. You step around a shallow puddle near the curb. In its surface a warehouse window wavers, then breaks when a drop falls from an eave. The city is practical even in reflection. It shows wood, brick, rope, water and smoke. A barge moves slowly along the quay, or perhaps only shifts against its mooring. You hear rope creak and water lap against the side. These sounds are broader than the workshop sounds, but no less rhythmic. Rotterdam is full of repeated motions. Tides, wheels, cranes, footsteps, ledges, doors, and your own hackle strokes all belong to the same working day. You pass men and women whose trades you may know only by traces. Coal dust on a sleeve, flour on an apron, fish smell on a coat, ink on a finger, damp wool at a collar. Everyone carries some sign of where the day has kept them. Yours is flax, pale and dry, clinging stubbornly in small places. The job remains hidden because its product leaves it behind. Once flax becomes thread and cloth, the hackler disappears from view. No one sleeping under linen thinks of iron combs. No one fastening a cuff imagines retted stems drawn again and again through teeth in a portside room. But forgetting does not undo the work. It only makes the remembering softer when we return to it. You might reach home with one fine strand still caught near your cuff. It lies there through supper, through lamplight, through ordinary talk. Only later do you notice it and pull it free. Between thumb and finger, it seems almost nothing, yet for a moment, the whole room returns with it, the bench, the dust, the window, and the slow scrape of the comb. Evening food tastes stronger after a day in flax dust. Soup has warmth. Bread has softness. Tea or coffee feels dark and round in the mouth. Your hands, washed but still a little rough, wrap around the cup and take comfort from heat. The body is glad to be still. The mind does not need much more. If rain begins, it taps quietly against the glass and deepens the smell of stone outside. You may think briefly of the stored flax and trust that it has been covered well enough. Damp is always a concern, but not every concern needs to be carried into sleep. The day's carefulness can be allowed to stand. You did what the room required. And while the evening lowers around the city, the next day waits in the workshop, not as a demand but as a familiar shape. Morning returns with a softer sky and a faint rain on the roofs. The street outside the flax room is dark with wet, and the sound of wheels is muffled. You step inside with damp at the shoulders of your coat and the smell of rain following you through the door. The workshop smells drier than the street. though the river air has crept in overnight. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler begins again by checking the stored bundles. Damp can make good flax troublesome, so you touch the outer fibers and feel for heaviness. They are cool, but not wet. That is a relief so small it barely becomes a thought. You shift the bundles slightly, giving them air, and choose a lot suited to the room's mood. Rain changes the work. The fibers may be less brittle, which helps in some ways, but they may also cling more if the air grows heavy. You test the first bundle across the coarse hackle and feel a slower drag than yesterday. Not bad, only different. The material asks you to adjust. Your hand answers with a longer, more even pull. Outside, water drips from the eaves in a steady pattern. The sound joins the scrape of flax and makes the room feel enclosed, sheltered, almost private. The window is blurred at the edges. Light enters without brightness. You work close to the bench, surrounded by plant smell, damp wood, cold iron, and the faint warmth beginning in your own hands. This morning's lot has good length but a little more cling. You divide it into narrower sections, letting each portion pass through the teeth without crowding. The hackle catches fewer broken fibers when the bundle is small. The pace is slower, but the result is cleaner. You can feel that in the fall of the line after each pass. We keep returning to the same motions because that is how the job reveals itself. A person who only visits the room once may see monotony. A person who stands here day after day sees weather, quality, tool condition, body rhythm, and the shifting character of each bale. Repetition opens difference. It does not close it. The rain brings out the smell of the old wood. It rises from the floorboards and bench legs, mixing with flax dust and the cold mineral scent of wet brick. Somewhere nearby, a coat drips quietly onto the floor. A boot scrapes mud from its edge. The work continues. The hackle teeth do not mind rain, so long as rust and damp are watched. You clear the teeth more carefully, because moist air can make waste cling near the base. The toe pulls away in soft mats rather than loose, dry tufts. It feels warmer than the iron and slightly springy in the hand. You lay it aside, then wipe the block where dust has begun to gather in a darker paste. Small changes in weather create small changes in care. The first finished line of the rainy morning is pleasing. It hangs with weight, smooth but not brittle, and when you shake it gently, the fibers separate in slow, soft strands. The color is muted by the gray light. Pale gold becomes beige, silver becomes ash, and the whole bundle looks quieter. You set it aside where air can reach it. As the rain steadies, the day's pace becomes even slower, and the room accepts that without complaint. The next bundle is opened near the window, where the light, though dull, is best. You spread the flax and see tiny darker flecks hidden among the fibers. Some are shiv, some dust, some perhaps bits of field that escaped earlier stages. Your fingertips move through them patiently. A few flecks fall out before the bundle reaches the hackle at all. The Rotterdam Flax Hackler works by prevention as much as correction. Removing what you can by hand saves strain on the teeth and preserves the long fibers. You loosen, shake, and turn the bundle, letting small impurities drop to the bench. The sound is slight, like crumbs falling onto paper. Then you begin the combing, with the bundle already more willing. A heavier shower passes over the roof. For a few minutes, the outside world becomes a soft rush. Voices disappear, wheels fade, and the workshop feels wrapped in rain. Your hands keep their rhythm inside that wrapping. Draw, lift, turn, draw again. The rain does not hurry, neither do you. The fiber in this lot has a smooth middle but tangled ends. You work the ends separately, drawing only part of the length through at first, then gradually including more. This keeps the long fibers from tearing where the tangles are thickest. It is a slow method, but it saves what matters. Much of the hackler's skill lies in knowing that slow work can be less wasteful than fast work. Your shoulders settle into the movement. The body knows when to lean and when to pull back. The wrist follows a small arc, and the fingers release pressure just before the fiber would strain. None of this needs naming while you do it. The naming comes later, in our quiet telling. At the bench, knowledge is motion. A little toe sticks to your damp cuff. You brush it away, but a few fibers remain. Rain has made everything more willing to cling. The apron darkens slightly where moisture from your coat touched it. The room is not uncomfortable, only close. Its smells are lower and rounder, less dusty than yesterday, more earthy. The finished fibers are arranged with extra care, because damp air can make a pile settle heavily. You keep the bundles loose and lifted where possible. If they are tied too tightly now, they may hold a crease or trap moisture. The thought is practical, quiet, and constant. Good work includes protecting what you have already made. A small stove, if lit, would be welcome on such a morning. Its heat would dry the air near it and bring a faint metal warmth to the room. You would not place flax carelessly close, of course. Dry fiber and heat must be respected. But a little warmth at a distance changes the hands, and warm hands judge texture better. The rain eases to a lighter tapping. Outside sounds return one by one, as if someone is placing them back into the street. A wheel over stone, a shout from the yard, a gull, a door. Inside, the hackle keeps its same place in the pattern. The city expands again, but your task remains held between palm and iron. By mid-morning, the rainy day rhythm has settled fully, and the work feels less like effort than attendance. You attend to the flax the way one might attend to a fire that must neither flare nor die. Not with alarm, but with quiet checking. Is the bundle too damp? Are the teeth clear? Is the toe gathering thickly? Is the line falling smooth? Each question is answered by touch before it becomes thought. Your hands move, and the room stays in order. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler's bench sits in a city shaped by water, and water has shaped the flax long before this rainy morning. Retting itself depended on moisture, on the loosening power of ponds, streams, dew, or controlled damp. Too little, and the fibers clung stubbornly to the stem. Too much, and strength could be lost. The plant's history with water continues now in the air around you. You draw a bundle through the fine teeth and feel it move almost too softly. That can happen on a damp day. The fibers slide, but they also cling in places, and small mats form if you let the bundle bunch. You spread it wider with your fingers and draw in a thinner sheet. The change works. The line comes clean. There is something soothing in the way the tool gives immediate answers. If your angle is wrong, the fiber catches. If the bundle is too thick, the teeth clog. If the flax is ready, it passes with a smooth, dry whisper, even in damp air. The feedback is honest. It asks for attention, not worry. Your cup sits near the wall, away from dust, holding something warm enough to steam briefly when uncovered. The smell of tea or coffee rises between the plant scent and the rain. You take a sip when the bundle is set down, letting the warmth move through the throat. Then the hand returns to flax, and the cup returns to waiting. Small comforts fit between motions. The rain has kept the street quieter than usual. Fewer footsteps pass near the window, and those that do are softened by wet ground. The workshop's interior sounds feel clearer. The combing, the brush, the cloth against wood, the small breath you take before pulling a difficult section. We stay with them, because they hold the day together. A bundle from the lower grade shows signs of uneven retting. Some fibers separate easily, while others cling to bits of stem as though the plant is reluctant to let go. You do not need harsh words for it. You use the coarse hackle, then hand loosen, then hackle again. The usable line emerges in modest lengths. The toe pile grows, but that is the honest result. Every bale teaches limits. Not all flax can become fine linen. Not all fiber will pass smoothly through the finest teeth. The worker's peace comes partly from accepting this early. You do the best work the material permits. That is different from forcing the material to pretend. The old trades knew that distinction well. By now the rain has become a fine mist against the glass. Light brightens slightly, though the sky remains low. You can see more clearly the pale dust on your hands, and the darker damp marks near the door. The room is both dry and wet, warm and cold, field and city. Your bench stands at the meeting point. When the noon hour nears, The rainy morning's slower pace has produced fewer finished bundles, but they are clean, and that is what the day allowed. You stop at a natural place after tying a finished group loosely and clearing the hackle teeth. The pause feels deserved, not because the work was hard in a dramatic sense, but because it asked for continuous small care. Your hands are tired from delicacy more than force. You rub the base of one thumb and feel the tenderness there. Then you reach for the wrapped meal. Rainy midday food has a special comfort. Bread feels more substantial. Cheese tastes sharper. A warm drink matters more. You sit where the draft does not catch your back and let the shoulders round for a few minutes. The room continues to smell of flax, but now the smell is background, like a blanket folded over the day. If others are present, conversation may turn to damp bales and whether the weather will clear. Someone may mention a shipment delayed by rain, or a roof that needs mending, or a floor corner where water gathers. Such talk belongs to working rooms. It is ordinary weather talk, but weather is never only weather when materials depend on it. You listen while resting your hands. A drop falls from a coat peg into a small dark spot on the floor. Another follows after a long pause. The sound is tiny, yet in the midday quiet it becomes noticeable. You look at the spot, then away. There is nothing to do unless it spreads. Much of work is knowing which small things need action, and which can simply be observed. The hackles stand in their places, wiped but not gleaming. Their upright pins catch a dull lamp or window light. They look like tools waiting, not threats, because your hands know them. Familiar sharpness is different from danger. It asks for respect, and respect has become part of the rhythm. You think, perhaps, of the fields again. Rain on flax before harvest could lodge the stems or darken the crop. Rain during drying could delay the next stage. Dew retting depended on cycles of moisture and air. Water was both helper and troublemaker. Here in Rotterdam, even after the plant has traveled far from the field, water still has a say. The rest ends gradually. You fold the cloth around what remains of the meal, finish the drink, and stand with a small stretch that you keep private. Your hands find the bench before your mind fully returns to the task. The afternoon's first bundle waits, softened by the room's damp air and ready for a patient draw. And as the rainy noon slips into a muted afternoon, the work resumes with a quieter sound, as though the whole workshop has lowered its voice. The first afternoon pull is slower than the morning pulls, because the fibers have taken up a trace of the damp air while you rested. You feel it in the way they cling near the middle, not enough to trouble the work, but enough to ask for a wider spread. Your thumb opens the bundle gently before it touches the teeth. The coarse hackle receives it with a muffled rasp, less brittle than yesterday's sound, more like dry grass under a light cloth. You draw the flax down, lift it free, and pause to shake it once. The strands settle in a loose fall. Some short fibers drift away and cling to the apron rather than falling. Rain changes even the waist. It makes the toe softer, slower, and more willing to gather in small mats at the base of the iron teeth. You clear those mats with a patient motion, then begin again. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler's rainy afternoon is not idle, only measured. Fewer bundles may be finished, but each one receives more careful handling because dampness hides small catches inside the line. You learn to feel them early. A little tension in the wrist, a change in the sound, a sudden narrowing of the fall, and you know to stop before the fiber breaks. The workshop light remains grey and even. There are no bright patches now, no sharp gleams on the metal, only a soft dullness that makes every object feel closer. The bench, the stool, the hackles, the bundled flax, and your own hands seem part of one quiet arrangement. Outside, rain makes the stones shine. Inside, the air holds steady around the work. You choose a thinner portion for the finer hackle. The teeth stand close enough to catch anything still twisted, so you let the bundle rest lightly across them before drawing. The pull is smooth for a few inches, then tightens. You lift it once, separate the fibers, and see the hidden clump. It opens under your fingers like a small knot in wet thread. There is no need to be annoyed with the flax. It has already traveled through field, water, drying, breaking, scutching, storage, and transport. By the time it reaches your hand, it carries many chances for unevenness. Your work is the last quiet correction before spinning. You do not erase its history. You make that history workable. A distant whistle reaches the room, softened by rain and distance. It may come from the river or a yard beyond the warehouses. The note fades quickly, leaving the smaller sounds behind. The brush against the teeth, the cloth at your wrist, the light scrape of your shoe as you shift weight. We stay with these close sounds because they keep the mind beside the bench. The first bundle of the afternoon finishes well enough. You tie it loosely, keeping the fibers straight, and set it where air can pass around it. Your hand rests over it for a moment. The line feels cool, faintly heavy from the damp day, but still clean and strong. It will need careful storage. You make a little more space on the shelf. The next bundle is darker and more troublesome. It seems to have absorbed the weather more deeply, and the fibers do not separate as willingly. You take smaller sections. The coarse hackle removes stubborn shive and much short tow, and the work takes time. Time is not the enemy in this room. Waste is the enemy, and haste is often waste wearing a busy face. You lean into the motion, but not too far. A worker's back must last beyond one bundle. Your stance is a quiet compromise between strength and care. One foot placed slightly back, knees easy, shoulders low. The body becomes economical because the day requires it. Every unnecessary flourish would have to be paid for later by muscle and joint. The rain eases for a while, and in the lighter air you hear more of the street. Wheels cut through shallow water. A door bangs once and is caught. Someone calls to another person across the lane, their voice rounded by the damp. Then the room returns to its inner weather. The flax moves through the hackle again, and the teeth comb out another small measure of disorder. By the middle of the afternoon, the rain has left the air cool and close, and the task turns toward protecting the better flax from the damp that helped it earlier. You check the finished bundles more often now. The best line should not sit too tightly packed on a wet day. You lift one group and loosen it slightly, letting the fibers breathe. They slide against your fingers with a muted silkiness. The color is subdued, pale straw under gray light. You place it back with a small gap beside it, enough to keep the air moving. For the Rotterdam Flax Hackler, storage is part of the craft because flax can be spoiled after it has been well prepared. Damp can darken it, encourage mustiness, or make the fibers cling in ways that later work will resent. You do not think in grand terms. You simply keep the bundles off the floor, away from the wall, and out of the worst of the chill. The room's brick wall feels cold if your sleeve brushes it. Near the window, the sill is damp at the corners. You wipe it with a cloth so no stray fibers sit in wetness. The cloth comes away gray, with a few pale strands stuck to it. You wring nothing out, because it is not soaked, but the damp mark on the fabric shows what the air has been doing. Your hands return to the bench. The next bundle is better suited to the weather, firm enough to hold its shape, but not brittle. It passes through the coarse hackle with a steady, satisfying sound. The waist is moderate. The line begins to show after only a few pulls. You feel grateful in the simple way a worker feels grateful for material that cooperates. There is a beauty in a good bundle of flax before it becomes anything else. It is not yet thread, not yet cloth, not yet rope or lace or linen sheet. It is a quiet promise of those things. When you hold it, you hold possibility in a very practical form. It has length, strength, color, and a faint plant scent that no finished cloth entirely remembers. You turn the bundle and prepare it for the finer teeth. The close pins catch remaining short fibers and align the long ones with more precision. Your hand slows as the quality improves. Fine work does not always mean more effort. Often it means less pressure, better timing, and knowing when to leave the material alone. You draw, lift, and judge. A small draft moves under the door, carrying the smell of wet stone. It brushes the dust near the floor and shifts it into a faint pale line. You notice, then return to the work. The draft will matter later when you sweep. because it will hide fibers in corners. For now, it is only part of the room's breathing. The good bundle finishes with little waste. You shake it once, and it falls straight from your hand. The ends are not perfectly even, so you stroke them together carefully, saving length while making the bundle manageable. Your fingers move from coarse ends toward the smoother fall, reading the texture. This is how judgment enters without speech. In a larger industrial setting, some of these motions may be handled by machines with rows of pins and moving parts, drawing flax through more quickly than one pair of hands could manage. Yet even machines need feeding, watching, clearing, and grading, and hand knowledge does not vanish simply because iron moves. In smaller rooms and careful finishing, you still stand where touch matters most. The afternoon does not rush toward evening. It lengthens. The rain has made the day feel enclosed, as if time itself is wrapped in a damp wool coat. You work within that enclosure, drawing one bundle after another through the hackles, sorting the toe, checking the shelves, and keeping the bench clear enough to see what your hands are doing. And when the grey light finally begins to thin, the rainy day asks for an earlier attention to cleaning, drying, and putting the room in order. You set aside the bundle in your hand only after finishing its current stage. It will need finer combing tomorrow, but it has passed the rough work cleanly enough to rest. You tie it with a loose cord and mark its place in your mind. Half-finished work should be left in a way that tells the next morning what remains. A careless pile would steal time from tomorrow's hands. The hackles are more clogged than they would be on a dry day. Damp toe clings low around the teeth, pressing into the base where dust has darkened. You work it free with the wooden pick, drawing out small mats and teasing apart what can be saved. The movement is slower than usual. Wet dust likes corners, and corners must be persuaded. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler does not simply leave tools because the hour has grown late. Iron teeth that hold damp fiber too long may rust or stain the next bundle. Wood that stays dusty and moist grows unpleasant. Fibers left in the wrong place are harder to sort later, so you clean carefully, not with fuss, but with the sensible patience of someone who has learned from many mornings. The brush sounds different against the dampened waste. It makes less of a dry rasp and more of a hushed dragging sound. You brush the hackle block, the bench near the teeth, and the cracks where shive has gathered. Little pieces resist, then loosen. A few fall to the floor. You will sweep them soon. You check the finished line again. The best bundles are moved farther from the wall, into the driest available place. If there is cloth to cover them, you lay it without pressing too tight. You want protection from dust, not trapped damp. Your hands smooth the covering lightly. Under it, the flax lies straight and quiet. Outside, the rain has stopped. The street carries that after-rain smell, a mix of clean stone, horse, river, and soot made sharper by wet air. It enters when the door opens briefly, then fades behind the warmer smell of worked fiber. The contrast is pleasant. The city has been washed only on the surface. The workshop has been dusted only enough to begin again. You gather toe into its proper containers, noticing how the finer toe clumps today. It needs loosening before storage. You pull it apart gently, letting air enter the mass, then place it in the bag or basket. The coarser waste goes elsewhere. Your fingers are grayed by damp dust now, and the skin feels slightly rough. The floor is swept from the driest corner outward. Bristles push damp dust into heavier ridges than yesterday's light piles. Shive clicks less and drags more. The broom catches on a raised board, then moves on. You work steadily. Cleaning has its own repetitive comfort, especially when the day's main work has been careful and close. A lamp may be lit earlier because the rain-dark day gives little evening brightness. Its glow warms the flax color at once, changing ash and straw into honey and old paper. The iron teeth throw longer shadows on the bench. Your hands look darker in that light, with pale dust caught in the lines of the skin. The room becomes smaller under the lamp. You wipe the bench until the cloth comes away less marked. It will never be perfectly clean, but it will be ready. The difference matters. Ready means the morning will begin with tools where they belong. Bundles placed sensibly. and the work surface clear enough to trust. A calm morning often begins the evening before. You know that without making a lesson of it. As the rainy day's last tasks settle into place, the workshop holds the lamplight close, and the sound of the city returns in softened fragments. You hear water dripping from roofs outside, slower now, each drop separated from the next. Somewhere a wheel passes through a puddle with a low splash. A voice near the quay speaks briefly and is lost. These sounds reach you through door, wall, and window, but they do not disturb the room. They only remind you that Rotterdam remains awake around this small pocket of fiber and iron. Your apron is heavier today with damp dust. You remove it carefully, fold it, and shake only where the sweepings can be gathered. A pale grey powder falls, along with tiny clinging strands. You brush the cloth with your hand, then hang it where it can dry. Tomorrow it will be stiff in places. That too is ordinary. The basin water feels colder than the room. When you wash, the dust loosens in grey swirls, and a few flax fibers drift like pale threads on the surface. You rub beneath the nails and along the thumbs. The smell of soap rises, plain and faintly sharp. It changes the hands but does not fully erase the day. You dry them slowly. Damp weather makes the skin feel tender after washing, and the small scratches from fiber and shiv become more noticeable. You flex the fingers, one hand and then the other. They are tired, but not empty. They still hold the memory of the afternoon's adjustments, the wider spreads, the smaller portions, the care around moisture. Before leaving, you glance at the covered flax once more. The cloth lies flat. The bundles are raised. The hackles are cleared. The floor is not spotless, but it is sound enough. You listen for any drip inside the room and hear none. Good. The rain can stay outside tonight. The door opens to the street's wet breath. Cool air touches your face, and the smell of river water comes with it. The sky has not cleared, but the rain has thinned into mist. Lamps glow in blurred circles along the lane. You step carefully over slick stones, carrying the day's rhythm into the evening again. Walking after a damp day feels different from walking after a dry one. Your clothes hold a little chill. Your cuffs feel rough where dust and moisture met. Your shoulders are tired from gentler work made slower by weather. Still, the body knows the way. It moves through Rotterdam's wet streets with the same steady patience it used at the bench. The port sounds distant and close at the same time. Water against hulls, rope against posts, a cart axle complaining, boots on stone. The city's work does not become quiet all at once. It changes shifts, changes rooms, changes hands. Your own part is done for now, but other forms of attention continue under other lamps. At home or wherever rest waits, the smell of flax may follow you indoors. It is in the cuffs, perhaps in the hair, certainly in the apron left behind if you wore it long enough. A person used to the trade might not notice at once. Others might. Dry plant, old water, dust and warehouse air. The scent is not unpleasant. It is simply proof. And when sleep eventually gathers, the rain-softened day leaves behind the slow motion of fiber passing through teeth, again and again, without hurry. The next clear morning feels newly washed. The street stones still hold damp in their cracks, but the air is brighter, and the workshop window admits a cleaner light. You arrive to find the room cool, not wet, and the covered bundles resting as you left them. The cloth is lifted carefully. The flax beneath has kept well enough through the night. That small success starts the day gently. In the 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler's room, weather after rain can be a gift. The air is fresh but not harshly dry, and the fibers may have just enough suppleness without clinging. You test yesterday's half-finished bundle and feel it answer well. The coarse work is done. Today it can meet the finer teeth with less resistance. You spread the strick and let the light show its length. The color seems brighter after the gray day, pale gold with silver threads running through it. A few darker fibers remain, and you remove them with your fingers before beginning. The bundle falls neatly across the fine hackle. You draw it down with a smooth, measured pull, and the sound is almost a whisper. There is a certain relief in returning to a bundle you prepared the day before. Your own earlier care greets you. Because you left it loose, straight, and properly tied, it opens without trouble. Because the tools were cleaned, the teeth receive it cleanly. The past day has made this morning easier. Work often teaches such quiet continuity. The flax passes through the fine hackle several times, each pass removing less waste than the last. You know you are nearing the right point, when the fibers no longer change much from one pull to the next. More combing would not improve them, it might only shorten them, so you stop. Stopping at the right time is also a skill. You tie the finished line and place it among the better bundles. It has a clean fall, good length, and a soft sheen in the morning light. Your palm rests against it briefly, feeling its cool smoothness. The satisfaction is small but real. No one needs to applaud a bundle of well-hackled flax. The bundle itself is enough. The clearer weather brings more sound from outside. Carts are sharper on the stones, footsteps quicker, voices less muffled. A gull calls overhead with a ragged note, and somewhere a crate lands heavily on a floor or wagon bed. The port has shaken off yesterday's rain. Inside, your work remains composed, but the room feels a little more awake. You open a new bale or lot, depending on what is being brought forward. The binding is tight, and when it loosens, the flax expands slightly, as if relieved. The smell is stronger from the newly opened mass. Field, retting, storage and dry stem rise together. You take a moment to let the bundle air before drawing out the first workable strick. This lot comes from better prepared material. You can see it in the cleaner stems and feel it in the way the fibers separate. The coarse hackle takes away a modest amount of tow. The line remains strong. The work moves well, though not fast enough to lose its calm. Good material should not make the worker careless, and you keep the same steady pace. As the morning settles into clear light, the process becomes almost transparent, and every stage of the hackler's skill can be felt through the hands. You begin with opening, never rushing straight to the teeth. The tied flax must be loosened, shaken, and spread, because a compact bundle hides trouble. Your fingers pass through the outer fibers and free small tangles before they grow worse under the comb. This first touch is like greeting the material. It tells you how the rest of the morning may go. Then comes the coarse hackling, where the strongest corrections happen. You lay the flax over the wider teeth and draw it downward, letting short fibers and shiv catch and fall away. The sound is full and dry. Your hand lifts before the bundle thins too much. You turn it, draw again, and watch the roughness begin to leave. The tow from this stage is useful but coarse. It gathers in thicker tufts, with broken fibers and bits of woody stem mixed in. You remove it from the teeth and sort it by feel. Some can be saved, some is too dirty or brittle. The distinction is made quickly, but not carelessly. The room depends on many such small decisions. After that comes finer hackling. The teeth are closer, the pull lighter, and the eye more watchful. Here the line improves in smoothness rather than simply losing rough waste. The fibers align. Hidden knots appear and are corrected. Weak pieces fall away. A long, soft fall begins to form. You feel the bundle growing more responsive under your hand. A final pass may be needed, or it may not. The question is answered by the fiber itself. If it moves cleanly, shines softly, and falls without clumps, you let it rest. If a slight drag remains, you give it another careful pass. The trade is made of such judgments. No bell rings when a strick is finished. Your hand simply knows. The finished line is tied loosely and placed in grade. It should not be bent sharply, crushed or mixed with lesser material. The tow is gathered. The shive and sweepings wait for later. The teeth are cleared. Then the next bundle begins. This is the cycle, and the cycle is the day. We can stay inside that cycle without needing it to become anything else. The mind can rest in a process that is clear and repeated. There is comfort in knowing what follows. Opening follows tying. Coarse follows opening. Fine follows coarse. Sorting follows fine. Cleaning follows sorting. And through it all, your hands remain the quiet center. The morning's clearer air keeps the dust lighter. It rises more readily than yesterday, turning in the window light before settling. You may step aside now and then, or work with your face angled slightly away from the worst of it. The dust is part of the job, but it does not need to be invited. Practical workers learn small ways of living beside what cannot be entirely removed. By mid-morning, the bench holds a pleasing order. Finished flax on one side, prepared stricks waiting in the middle, two sorted behind the hackles, waste kept low and contained. The arrangement looks simple, but it took attention to make and will take attention to keep. Order in a workshop is not fixed. It is renewed by every motion, and as the clearer day brings more bundles through your hands, the thought of where the flax will go next begins to settle quietly beside the work. The line you prepare may travel only a short distance, or it may enter a wider trade route through merchants, mills and workshops. Rotterdam's strength is movement, and materials rarely remain still for long. Flax can arrive from fields and leave as prepared fiber, yarn, cloth, or goods tied into other trades. You do not control the whole journey. You make one necessary part of it possible. The 1910s Rotterdam Flax Hackler works near a port where goods from many places meet. Grain, coal, timber, oil, cotton, coffee, iron and countless smaller cargoes move through ledgers and hands. Flax is quieter among them. It does not clatter like coal or smell strong like fish, but it carries its own importance in the textile world. Your bench is one of the places where that importance becomes usable. You draw another strick through the fine teeth, and the fibers come away smooth enough to imagine as thread. Not yet thread, but ready for the draw and twist that will make it so. Spinners depend on preparation more than outsiders know. A tangled line slows work. A poorly graded lot breaks, catches, and frustrates the next stage. Your calm attention protects someone else's rhythm. That thought does not make the work heavier. It makes it companionable. Unknown hands before you pulled the flax from soil, retted it, dried it, broke it, and scutched it. Unknown hands after you will spin, weave, wash, cut, stitch, sell, or use it. You stand in the middle, not alone, but connected by material. The fiber is the message passed along. The texture against your fingers changes as you move from one grade to another. Fine line slips softly. Middling line holds more body. Coarser fiber resists with a dry scratch. Two clings and tangles. Shive breaks and falls. By now these textures are as distinct as voices. You know them without needing to look every time. A breeze, or perhaps only the movement from a door opening, shifts the dust across the bench. You lay a hand lightly over the finished line to keep loose fibers from lifting. The door closes. The air settles. You lift your hand again, and the flax remains in order. Such moments are small, but they keep the day from unraveling. The clearer weather also sharpens smell. Dry dust returns to the air more easily, and the plant scent becomes lighter than on the rainy day. You smell straw, old pond water in memory, and the woody dryness of broken stems. From outside comes coal smoke, damp rope drying in sun, and a trace of horse from the lane. The workshop is never sealed from Rotterdam. It breathes with the city. You take up a bundle with especially long fibers. The line is worth careful preservation. You reduce the portion before hackling, choosing smaller passes rather than risking breakage. The work slows, but in a pleasing way. Each draw through the fine teeth is deliberate. The resulting flax lies smooth and lustrous, a reward for restraint. Someone might call this tedious if they stood outside the rhythm, but from within it, the task has shape, judgment, and small returns. Every clean pass is a little answer. Every sorted bundle is a visible change. Every saved length is proof that patience has weight in the world, even if it weighs less than a strand of flax. When the long fiber bundle is finished, you place it apart with the better grade. It deserves room. The ends are even enough, the fall clean enough, the color pleasing enough. Your fingertips linger on it for a second, then move away. The next bundle is waiting, and the day continues. As noon draws closer on the clear day, the work has gathered a steady brightness. and the bench seems almost full of pale light. The finished bundles reflect more light than the rough flax did. They lie in soft rows, each one smoother than when it arrived. The bench, dark from age and use, makes their color seem brighter. You can see why linen has so often been associated with cleanliness and coolness, even though its making is dusty, damp, and full of rough stages. The final impression hides the labor. You take a drink before the noon pause, not because the hour has demanded it, but because the throat feels dry from dust. The liquid clears the mouth, and for a moment the smell of flax recedes. Then it returns, familiar and steady. You wipe your fingers, finish the bundle at hand, and prepare the bench for the short rest. Stopping well is part of working well. The hackles are cleared enough that fibers will not harden in place while you eat. The better bundles are set away from crumbs and cups. The toe is pushed back. The stool is drawn near. These motions create a small island of rest inside the workroom. You do not leave the trade when you sit down. You sit within it, surrounded by the evidence of the morning. Bread, cheese, coffee, tea, or whatever simple food the day allows tastes different in the clearer air. The window brightens the paper or cloth around your meal. Dust on the bench is visible, so you keep the food in your lap or on a cleaner board. Workers learn such practical boundaries. Food here, fiber there, cup where it will not tip, hand wiped before eating. The body is pleased to sit. The back rounds slightly, the knees loosen. The hands, empty for the moment, rest with the palms up or folded together. They may twitch once with the remembered motion of hackling. You notice and smile inwardly, perhaps not with the face, but with the quiet recognition that work remains in the muscles even during rest. If talk comes, it is low. Someone mentions the quality of the new lot, better than expected after the rain. Someone else says the finer hackle needs watching because one tooth is beginning to lean. A third voice speaks of a ship due in, or a cart late from a warehouse. The conversation moves around the work as naturally as dust around the bench. We can rest there a little longer, listening to the room without the scrape of active combing. The city outside fills the gap. Hooves, wheels, distant calls, perhaps a bell marking the hour. Inside, a spoon touches a cup, paper folds, a chair creaks. The quiet is full of working people briefly still. The pause does not make the afternoon vanish. It waits in the bundles yet unopened, in the tools that will need clearing, in the fibers that have not yet found their grade. But because the work is familiar, its waiting does not press too sharply. You know how to return. The body already knows the first motion, and when the meal is folded away and the stool is pushed back, the afternoon begins with the same calm pull, but the light has shifted and the room feels wider. Your hands return to the flax without needing instruction, and the afternoon's first pull is smooth, pale and quiet under the shifted light. The fibers pass through the fine teeth with a low whisper, leaving only a little toe behind, and the bundle settles longer and straighter after each careful draw. Outside, Rotterdam goes on with its carts, wet stones, river air and warehouse doors. But here the world has narrowed to wood, iron, dust, and the calm weight of the work in your fingers. You finish only what belongs to this hour. The last strick is not hurried, and when it's ready, you smooth it once with your palm and lay it with the others, where the lying flax rests in soft, pale order. The toe is gathered, the teeth are cleared, and the bench slowly reappears beneath the day's fine covering of dust. Your apron brushes your knees as you move, carrying the faint smell of retted stem, old storage, and warmed cloth. The light lowers along the window frame. It touches the hackles for a moment, then leaves them dull and still. You wipe the wood with the worn cloth, not to make it new, only to make it ready to rest. A few fibers cling to your sleeve. A few remain in the cracks of the floor, where every day leaves something too small to gather. You place the finished bundles where the damp won't reach them, loose enough to breathe, straight enough for the next hands. The room has become quiet in layers now. First, the stopping of the comb, then the settling of dust, then the softer sounds outside taking the place of work. You wash your hands in cool water, and the pale threads drift away from your skin, like the last traces of a field. The Rotterdam Flax Hackler's bench is still now, the iron teeth cleaned, the toe tied, the flax lying smooth in the dimness, and there is nothing more to pull through the comb tonight.